Once again, I am joined by former Connecticut Senator, United Against Nuclear Iran Chairman, and the former Democratic Vice Presidential candidate, Joe Lieberman. Joe, thank you so much. We appreciate you standing by there. We wanted to hear you better. Give us your sense, once again, the question of John Kerry meeting with the Iranians under President Trump in office. A lot of people feel it's inappropriate and it was undermining of the sitting president.
Yeah, I believe it's inappropriate. It's very much like what we were upset with General Flynn about when we met with the Russians and others. The reality is that, I'm going to pick this up so it's easier. The reality is that it's not illegal for somebody like John Kerry or Rob Malley to meet with the leaders of a hostile government, Iran, but it runs the risk of misleading them to believe that they can wait out the current administration if they don't like what it was doing, as they didn't like what President Trump was doing. So it's the kind of thing that shouldn't happen. We have one president at a time, and that president earned by election, as Joe Biden has now, the right to carry out our foreign policy.
And now that is what President Biden is doing, Joe. He wants to return to the Iran nuclear deal. What should this administration be aware of? Give us the warning signs that you've spoken so much about with regard to Iran being an enemy and not in the U.S.'s best interest. But what if he returns to this deal?
Yeah, I think that this is a perilous time. I think the previous administration carried out exactly the right policy toward Iran. Of course, I was strongly against the original Iran nuclear agreement because I thought it didn't. I'm the chair of a group called United Against Nuclear Iran. That agreement did not end nuclear Iran. It just paused it for a while. It did nothing about a lot of other troublesome behavior by the Iranians. So I worry. The Biden administration's been a bit uncertain here. They've said that they want to go back to talks with Iran, but they also want to lengthen the term of the Iran nuclear agreement and strengthen it. Well, that's encouraging, but the only way you're ever going to do that is by keeping the economic and military pressure on Iran. And I haven't seen that the Biden administration has done that consistently yet. They've withdrawn sanctions from the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. They've not retaliated for Iran-backed rocket attacks on Iraq, and they've withdrawn attempts to impose snapback sanctions on Iran in the United Nations. So I think that sends a bad signal to Iran, and they will take advantage of us in doing that. And this, in my opinion, with all the uncertainty and instability in the world, the most serious enemy we have today, who can do us and our allies the most damage, is the Islamic Republic of Iran. So we can't make a mistake on this one. It's really important.
Which is why Israel is worried, saying it will address disputes with the United States over Iran below the radar for now. There is worry out there that what happens with Iran will affect the so-called Abraham Accords, which Secretary of State Mike Pompeo put in place, which normalized relations with Israel. Are you Israel and 5 countries in the Middle East? Are you seeing any changes in terms of the Israeli relationship with this new administration?
Well, in my opinion, there's no question that part of why the Abraham Accords, a historic breakthrough in relations between Israel and the Arab world, their Arab neighbors, happened was because of the tough policy that the Trump administration carried out against Iran, because the Arabs and the Israelis knew that the administration, the U.S., was now on their side, not on the side of their enemy and ours, Iran. And that's why they had the confidence to negotiate these historic peace agreements. I think that President Biden has a really important opportunity now, Maria, to rebuild what was not only a bipartisan anti-Iran consensus in Congress, which broke over the Iran nuclear agreement, but also to do what President Biden has said, Secretary Blinken has said they want to do in their foreign policy generally, which is to be back in the world working with allies. Our allies in the Middle East, the neighbors of Iran, the Arab world and Israel, need to be the first point of consultation about our Iran policy, not Paris or Berlin or London. It has to start in the Middle East, and it has to start with Republicans and Democrats in Washington. So I don't think there's any danger that the Iranians are going to do anything quickly and make an agreement that's not a good one for us, because they have their own problems. But I do believe that the only way to make progress with this regime in Iran is to remain tough economically and militarily.
All right, we will leave it there. Joe Lieberman, it's always a pleasure to get your insights on this important topic. Thanks for playing with us with all of that technical difficulty. Joe Lieberman, we'll see you soon.